Welcome to the first Code With Me live coding video. These videos are designed to give you a better understanding about how things are coded in a live coding environment versus just a standard PowerPoint presentation. If you're wondering, there is no video for portions 1 and 2 of this chapter, mainly because that's talking about setting things up and what elements are consisted of. So with this, we're going to go ahead and jump into section 3 and talk about the basic structure of web pages. First thing is, if you don't have brackets open, I would recommend going ahead and getting it open and getting things started with a brand new file. If your system doesn't look exactly like mine, don't worry. As long as you have most of it, you should be able to figure out exactly how things get along. Alright, with a new file, the first thing we're going to do is start typing some HTML. Hopefully you've seen the presentation so far, so you have a better understanding about what we're doing. Let's go ahead and get started. As with all HTML files, first thing is, start out with a triangle bracket. As always, with the structure of an HTML document, we have the exclamation point and the doc type. The doc type again is to determine the exact format and system that we'll be using to process this page. You can either use lowercase doc type or uppercase. It doesn't really matter at this point. I recommend uppercase just to get in a habit, but you can use both. If you've seen the presentation, you've seen that our doc type is basic HTML, nothing fancy beyond that. Below that, we have our HTML tag. And again, that includes everything inside of the HTML document minus the doc type. Again, the doc type should be in the first line, the HTML should be in the second line, and because we're good developers, let's go ahead and close our HTML tag. And if you notice, it's just black and white right now. We don't have the coding enabled, mainly because brackets doesn't know how to process this file just yet. So you can add the colorization using one of two methods. Either you can go down here to where it says text, click it, and say HTML. That way it automatically knows what to do. Or if you don't want to do that, since it's a little extra, let's just get this back to the default. You can go to File and Save As, and in this case, save it where you want to. In this case, I'm going to save it as chapter2.html, and since I'm adding the .html at the end of the file name, it's going to automatically convert this into an HTML document, in which case we have colorization, which works perfectly. Alright, next thing we're going to do is add our head section. If brackets automatically closes that for you, then by all means let it do so. Otherwise, I would say get into the habit of closing it yourself. That way, in case you have a system that does not automatically close it for you, it makes it easier for you and not have to worry about what you did or did not close. Next, below that, we have our body and our closing body. And right there, you have the basic structure of an HTML document. But we're not exactly done yet. The next thing you want to do is make sure that you have an attribute with the HTML tag. In this case, lang equals en. I want to pay close attention to this attribute and value because if you paid attention in the presentation, you notice that all values have double quotes around them and there are no spaces around the exclamation or between the value and the closing triangle brackets. So this is perfectly fine as it is. The next thing that we're going to need to make this at least a basic working format is something called the title tag. In this case, I'm going to say Chapter 2 Coding. You can have whatever you want in that, it does not matter. Below that, or at least somewhere in the head, you want your meta tag. And inside the meta tag, we have the attribute char set. And if you recall from before, the char set is of course the character set that we're loading to make sure that the browser and the page has the necessary character dictionary to load everything we're going to put on the page. The default char set that we're going to use is UTF-8, and if you want, you can self-close it. It really doesn't matter at this point. It's just a good coding practice because otherwise you don't know what tags are closed and what aren't. Alright, so go ahead and save either by going to File and Save or pressing Command or Control S. If you notice at the very top, if it has a little dot next to the title or a dot right here, then it says that, hey, you haven't saved your file yet. So if you go to File and Save, you notice that the little dot goes away from both locations, which means that you now have a saved document. Alright, so this is your basic 11 lines of standard HTML documents. You have your HTML, your head, your title, your meta, your body tags, and of course your doc type. Now, since we are good developers, I want to make sure that things do get off on the right foot, in which case I want to make sure that this code is readable. Now, you either have two options. One, you can click this wand over here to automatically beautify the code, but if you don't want to do that because it does it for you, you can go through and do it yourself. If you go through doing it yourself, here's what I recommend. Tab over anything or space over anything that is a child element. In this case, the parent is the HTML and the head is a child. So I'm going to go ahead and just tab everything over by one. Okay, not done yet. We can also have a parent section here of the head, so the title and the meta are child, so we can tab that over, and now it's a little easier to read. Go ahead and save, and we're good to go. Alright, since that's not much in this video, let's go ahead and add a few more things. We've already talked about attributes and values. We talked about blank lines with the enters, the character set, the title, the indentation, the relationships, and now let's take a look at what this looks like in our actual browser. So if you can, go ahead and start up an instance of Chrome or some other browser of your choosing. I just like Chrome because I have it. Nice and easy. New window. And let's shrink this down a bit so that we can see both the browser and our code. So the first thing you want to do is go to Open and find your file, which in this case is chapter2.html. Alright, now if you notice there are two things here. First off, there's nothing on the page. Why? Well, because there's nothing inside of our body. If we start adding things into the body, such as hello world, which if you get into any programming course, this is the first thing that you do ever. Go back to the browser, click the refresh button, and there we go, hello world. You notice that also in the title we have chapter 2 coding, which is exactly what it says in our title tag right here. Alright, so that is the end of this Coding With Me video. The next video will talk about some basic stylizing of HTML tags, and the next video after that is validation. If you have any questions, please by all means contact me either via email or Twitter, and we can work through your problems together.